Alright guys, welcome back to the next episode of our driver career mode. We're actually back in the United States here in Vegas for our third and final home GP for myself and our teammate of Logan Sargent. Logan is still yet to score any points, and if you guys remember from last episode, Daniel Ricciardo is now back in the mix to round out the end of the season for AlphaTauri. And yeah, so we're looking for a good weekend. Thankfully, practice is only mixed weather, it looks like. But yeah, we should be good and clear to see a dry qualifying and a dry race this weekend. So let's get right into practice. See you guys for qualifying. Alright, so we're out in Q2, and actually our teammate Logan Sargent qualified ahead of us here. As he's starting up in P12, we're starting in P14. We'd lost a lot of time on those last stretches because Sector 2, right-hander, we were late on our braking zone. So it's going to be a P14 start. Going to be row number 7 for us, and Logan Sargent's going to be directly in front of us, so hopefully he'll have a good start. As Max Verstappen back in the front compared to last week where he had to limp it back to the pits for a late pit stop. Sergio Perez back in P7, and Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, they're in P3, P4, so they're in for a good race. And our rival, Pierre Gasly, already up into P5 for today's race, for this weekend's race, as Valtteri Bottas, Lance Stroll, and Oscar Piastri are the other 3 drivers that are knocked out of Q2. As Lance Stroll, we're still having to go back and forth between Lance Stroll. Pierre Gasly's kind of stepped up from our rivalry, as he's back up into the top 10 and getting some good spots for races. So we'll have to wait and see how we do with our degradation here in Las Vegas. Let's get to the race.
Welcome to Las Vegas, and for Formula One, it's welcome back to Las Vegas. No longer do we race in the Caesars Palace car park. Tonight, the time is right to go racing in the street. 17 corners, 3 straights, 2 DRS zones, and the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas as we race around the 3.8 miles of Sin City. The strip has been taken over to become a straight tonight, commanding top speeds of around 212 miles an hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Fernando Alonso, Russell, Gasly, Norris, Leclerc, Ocon, Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Verstappen, Sargent, Stroll, Johnson, Bottas, Joe, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event.
And they can do it for sure, as long as they don't dwell too much on the position. At the end of the day, there's only one way to go racing, and that's to give it everything you've got. Either your best is good enough to stay in the hunt, or it's not. There's no point giving any less than 100%.
Right, mate, I know it's your home Grand Prix, but I want you to treat it like any other race. Let's not make any unnecessary risks, please.
All right, so our last home Grand Prix here in the season, as we're in Vegas, and hopefully we do as good as we did in Texas with the tire life. So we're gonna go ahead and drop it down like we usually do and go from there. So let's get out there. All right, so we are rolling into our grid spot, and as far as I know, Vegas is one of the only ones where you're actually at a like your mid-turn when you're in your grid slot. So
parking there, mate.
that'll be something to look forward to as we swap over to our 5 red lights. Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Russell, Gasly, top 5 off the start of the races. We're off to a good start. Teammate Logan Sargent off to a good start as well as we come up next to Max Verstappen. Next up is Oscar Piastri as we're side by side taking the inside corner ahead of Verstappen here. As he's trying to fight for the championship as we slot in behind Piastri. You can see Verstappen's time literally right next to us. You can see him in the mirror here and there. Piastri moving to the inside, and we're going to end up with coming up side by side to him, and we're going to end up breaking late. So we're side by side with Sainz taking the inside of Sector 1, almost Sector 2 here. As this long left-hander, the braking point was very hard to get used to until I realized that I can use the billboards up on the grandstands as a braking point reference. So there is our start to getting back to the strip, the main strip. We're trying to catch up to our teammate Logan Sargent. We're back in P10, he's up in P9, so we're both in the points for this late part of the season as we are taking that left-hander onto the back straight, which is the Las Vegas Strip. And yeah, you can see that we're somewhat closing the gap. No DRS as of yet, and you can hear the engine already, how we are redlining. And we have the tow, we have the momentum, and we brake a little bit as we give leeway to S1 Ocon in the Alpine ahead of us. And try not to come in contact with our teammate Logan Sargent. So that's basically going to be the start-finish straight here as it bends to the left, as that's where we started. So P9, lap 1, ahead of our teammate Logan Sargent. So we're sitting in P9, P10. That's 3 points for our team, and it would be Logan Sargent's first points of the race if he can sit in the top 10 with us. But moving on to the start of lap 3, we're skipping a lap or so. We have Logan Sargent, Max Verstappen. They're pretty close. Logan's moving on to the inside as we're coming through Sector 1, Sector 2 here, back towards the globe, back towards that long left-hander as we give leeway to Logan Sargent. And yeah, so we basically move to the inside, and we miss our braking point here. So Max Verstappen side by side with us, almost coming in contact with us as we're coming through Sector 2 now. And you can see us behind Logan Sargent, a little bit of wheel spin pushing Verstappen to the left side, the outside of this long right-hander, coming around. I don't necessarily know which hotel that was, but we're coming up to the left-hander for the Vegas Strip. We take a little bit more curve than we wanted, and we're right here. We're truly going to see the true power of the Red Bull that Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez have, as you can see that gap easily closing as Verstappen makes the position, and Carlos Sainz closing that toe in. So he makes a 3 wide, and you can see that we got closed off. You can see contact between the Ferrari and the Red Bull ahead of us as we're knocked back to P12. Logan Sargent still up in P9, trying to chase after S1 Ocon. That's going to be rounding out the end of lap 3, but later in Sector 2 on lap 4, we're trying to catch up to Carlos Sainz as best as possible. And Lance Stroll's about half a second behind. And here's where we're going to try to make our move back into the top 10. As we close the gap on Carlos Sainz. We have the tow, we have DRS at this point. We don't get DRS till the main straight. A little bit of contact, a little bit of aggressive move there on our part against Carlos Sainz as we make that left-hander onto the main strip. A little bit of oversteer there. So we're putting a little bit too much power down. So you can see that we're 0.85 tenths back behind Max Verstappen. We have DRS. To see how much pace we have already redlined on this Williams car right about there. You can hear it in the engine. As we move to the outside of Max Verstappen, coming up to that little uphill section, and braking under the walkway as we end up taking that position back against Max Verstappen. That way we're back in the top 10, so a lot of fighting going on so far this race. And later on in Sector 2, start of Sector 2, Max Verstappen takes that move again, and unfortunately...
Gearbox is running a fault. Shift speeds will be reduced for now.
And you can hear the redlining. We're up in 4th coming through here. And a little bit of contact with Lance Stroll as we're trying to get through. We're good in the lower gears as we're sitting in 4th gear already. And a little bit of wheel spin there coming through Sector 2. You can see we're going up to 5th. It was 3rd, 4th, and 5th gear. And we're just not getting any speed out of this car right now. If you guys did notice, we swapped out some engine parts to an older gearbox. But we're back in P19 already. And it's the Vegas Strip here as Yuki Tsunoda, who's P20, makes a pass on us. So unfortunately, we're going to end up coming back to the start-finish line on the start of lap 6 and retiring the car.
That's a spectacular victory, and with it, the championship is secure. It's been a magnificent season, and they thoroughly deserve the cheers of the crowd here today. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it. So let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Well, for me, it's got to be Lewis Hamilton. The multiple world champion may be the boring choice at this point, but you can't argue that he's a driver deserving of his reputation.
It's another clear win for Mercedes as they managed to secure the Constructors' title. An incredible performance for the whole team. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action, and I can't wait to see what's next.
All right, so a very upsetting race as we finally get our DNF of the season with the we had an engine that we swapped over to. If you didn't notice, we swapped over to our second gearbox that we used earlier in the season that had at the moment had the least amount of wear and tear, so we wouldn't get a grid penalty. And I was kind of iffy about doing that because most of my all of my engines are at 80% wear, and I even increased the talking rate of my mechanic to tell me what was going on with the car. So like coming through sector 1, start of sector 2, that was all of a sudden like my gears came out, and then like I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I was losing positions. You can see I dropped all the way back down to P20, and we were struggling all the way to the end of the lap, and we had to retire the car. So our first retirement of the car, hopefully it's our only one, as we go into the season finale in the next episode. It's going to be a title decider for driver standings between George Russell and Max Verstappen. Mercedes secures the Constructor Championship with a 95-point deficit against Red Bull. And with how we're going, if we do well enough, we might be able to finish in P7. As looks like Alpine, yeah, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon both ended in the points. So I believe Alpine took the lead in the driver standings against Williams. So very unfortunate for us. Logan Sargent was in the points at the beginning of the race, but he lost pace and finished in P13. So yeah, we're still going to try to get him some points as we round out the end of this episode. So we will see you guys in the next episode for the season finale in Abu Dhabi.